to the new year. That in no way restricts the line of questioning that journalists will be allowed to undertake here this morning, as there are so many topical issues that many are waiting to hear the Prime Minister express his views on. With that said, I now hand over to Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honourable Keith Mitchell.
Good morning to distinguished media personnel who have joined us here this morning for this inaugural session of this nature. As the press secretary quite rightly indicated, with 2021 on us, I thought it is best that I have these regular session with members of the media, and therefore you are the first, but we hope to do it consistently on a basis of rotation of the personnel involved. So by the end of the year, we'll see many of you returning several times. So I look forward to the open session this morning. As you all are quite aware, I'm very much open to any questions that you wish to ask. I don't restrict you in any way whatsoever. And I look forward, therefore, to a very stimulating session with you and by implication with the public as a whole. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. I'm sure the journalists in the room feel quite welcome. For the purposes of introduction to the public, we have Ms. Linda Straker, we have Mr. Mikey Hutchinson, and we have Ms. Crystalina John. The floor is now open, journalists. You may start the questions.
Okay, Mr. PM, good morning. I'd like to be the first to really place my question to you, and I wish you a happy new year and all the best going forward for this year. My first question, is to ask you to perhaps relate to the opposition leader's claim that the step taken by government to reacquire the WRB shares in Grenada was an illegal move. Do you wish to comment, sir?
Well, as you are quite aware, we will be having a parliamentary session next week, Tuesday, in which, of course, we will be indicating, giving the nation certain details of that particular acquisition of those shares and the basis upon which it was done. It's unfortunate that the opposition, not even attempting to ask a question of those in authority, will talk about an illegal act. Clearly he doesn't understand what an illegal act is, and we will certainly be showing him that. I hope he shows up on Tuesday and be informed accordingly as to the correctness of the legality and the beneficial aspect of that particular acquisition, which we have indicated was certainly in the best interests of the country. And in fact, I have already said, I consider this decision of the government, which was handled extremely well by Minister Bowen and Minister Oliver Joseph over the long period, the sensitivity of the negotiation, as one of the best results for this country during my period of 36 years of service to this country. When I say that, it must mean a lot.
If I may come in here, Mr. Prime Minister,
yes.
Happy New Year, and to the viewing and listening public. On a follow-up to that question, are you able to say if there were any processes that were skipped as a result to achieve this outcome?
Well, we're not perfect human beings, so I can't say there's nothing that were not detailed. But I certainly feel very confident that we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. But in life, you cannot say there would be anything else that someone should not have said or should not have done. I would not go that far, but I'm extremely confident that this will work in the best interests of all the media personnel were here in terms of their own, as consumers of electricity services, and of course the average consumer in the country, all businesses in the country, all manufacturers, and all serious persons that really care about the sovereignty of this beautiful country of ours. I'm extremely confident.
Okay, just as a follow-up again,
Yes,
and when
sure.
you speak of the benefits, you're talking about reducing in electricity rates?
Well, all benefits. Clearly, reducing rates will have to be a major consideration. But it is more than this. Remember, fossil fuel is not seen as something that is being promoted in the international community. All countries are signing on to ensure that we reduce the whole carbon output in their country, which fossil fuel is a major contributor of. And under the conditions that we had in this particular arrangement, the country was not able to utilize the availability of alternative energy, which of course will bring in environmentally better policies of as the country's environment is concerned. And at the same time, you will know that investment in solar and other forms of alternative energy will in fact reduce the cost of energy fuel to the company, and at the same time will result in a general cost reduction as a whole.
Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister, and Happy New Year. I do have a lot of questions, but it started
Sure.
off on Grenada, so I will
Yes.
revert to my Grenada
Sure,
questions.
sure.
I have three direct questions as relate to Grenada. First of all, we were aware that negotiations were taking place since the tribunal judgment in March.
Yes.
It had to conclude on December 29th. Can you share with the public what would have been the penalties if we did not have a finalized agreement by then? What was the possibility could have happened to Grenada? And now that it is in the hands of government, the Companies Act provides for certain things to be done. Can you tell us how soon there will be a shareholders meeting as to appoint some form of management going forward, and what is the structure now? And thirdly, as we pointed out, one of the questions that keeps on coming up from social activists, whether they're online or whether they're on radio, is they're claiming to look through the budget of both 2020 and 21 and cannot come up with clear areas where the state could have been able to transfer monies. Can you share examples of where money was removed from to fulfill it? And at the same time, can you tell us the CBI regulation provides for 40% of monthly income to be shown into the contingency account, as was provided for in the regulations of the CBI law. How much money is in that account presently?
Remember, I'm no longer Minister of Finance, so I won't have update information. And remember, I did indicate, in going to the last question first, I did indicate there will be a parliament session, and all this information that you're asking would be provided in details to the country in terms of the payments, what is made. But remember, there was one category of budget. I don't understand how this seemed to be such a unknown fact to many people, because I've heard all sorts of speculation. There is one thing about in the budget, debt payment is one vote. If you look at the debt payment schedule, see there is a vote called debt payment that is part of our budget process. And if you have a force to meet a debt payment, that is part of the government's overall commitment. So therefore, wherever, even if you take the money from other areas of the budget, it is part of your commitment. So the Minister of Finance will give will be able to share with you much more detail than I can do at this particular time. But we have broken absolutely no law. In fact, what we are doing going to Parliament is not getting parliamentary approval, parliamentary support, not necessarily approval, because it's part of the debt payments, and therefore that's already legally understood. So that's one aspect. You asked about the penalties. Yes, clearly, if you have a judgment payment, which is what part of the debt I was talking about, a judgment on the country, and it's well known. The problem, I get the impression that those who are now speaking, there are people who are genuinely concerned about the process and have no difficulty, but those seem to be bent on spreading what I call propaganda about this, seem to forget what arrangement the original government in 1994 signed on to with the purchase of Grenada. They forget conveniently. And this is why I'm looking forward to that session next week, Tuesday, when I will, in fact, the Minister of Finance will do his part. But I am the only member there in 1994 as a member of Parliament when this share purchase agreement was brought to the Parliament of the country. And the Hansard will show of the position that I took in 1994 as a lone member of my party in opposition in 1994. I will detail, I've already sought to get the Hansard so the nation would hear exactly what I said, and it almost turned out to be a fortune teller in that sense. So it was known that any change the government signed on to, any change in that purchase agreement, the force majeure clause will be in fact initiated by the buyer. And it means that we will be forced to buy back. The buyback decision was not a government decision. In a time of pandemic, where we have serious issues to deal with, we would not want to spend that kind of money to buy back any national asset. So we were forced to do it. And had we not done it, several penalties, of course, the name of the country would be brought into disrepute. No one wants to know that an international tribunal indicates that the government must pay and that we refuse to pay. That has serious implication to the image of the country. They can't come and, they won't be able to come and take us and sell us individually, but they certainly can do a lot to embarrass the government and the country. And I would not want to be part of this. So clearly, that was certainly a serious consideration. There's another factor. It will create a further bad blood between the government and the shareholder, major shareholder involved. And clearly, when the minister explained in Parliament next Tuesday, he will show. Had we not attempted to negotiate under the conditions that we both agreed to and met those commitments, the price that we would have to pay could be as much as $83 million US. So we got serious reduction, literally almost $20 million US by being able to meet that commitment. So all Grenadians should be praising the government, and particular Minister Bowen and Minister Oliver Joseph, who negotiated seriously for that concessions that we got. So I'm extremely proud of them. I was not the one in the middle of they reported to me, and I gave my advice as the discussion continued. So I'm just making the point that we will be many of those concerns would in fact be dealt with at the Parliament session. It would be a very interesting session, and I think the country will be extremely proud of this. The shareholders meeting, as the Minister said already, he's the one who would be working in dealing with this. There will be a meeting of the shareholders. They have to appoint persons to represent the shareholders on the board. That has not come before Cabinet yet, so that should be done very shortly. A meeting would be held accordingly with the shareholders. But we have already made it clear, and the Minister repeated it, the government will not keep the shares as government for any serious length of time. I do not believe, and I've made it clear, not just in this case, and many other cases, that the government is responsible for managing many, many issues in the country. Not just this government, governments of the past, whether it's PRG, whether it's ULP, whether it's NNP, whether it's NDC, whether it's TNP. And none of us can say that we have managed those government assets in the most optimal way. And I'm admitting this as Prime Minister, and of course a member of the NNP government throughout its terms of offices. So, if we are not able to manage the things that we have to manage in the most optimal way, why would we want to go and take on something else that the private sector or persons outside of government directly can manage and bring the optimum results to the country? That is a philosophical approach of this government. And my history is very clear. I'm a strong supporter of commercialization and privatization of serious assets that can bring further development and job creation to the country as a whole. My history is well known, whether it's the airport, was under government before and became a statutory body, whether it's gravel and concrete, whether it's central garage, just name them historically. I've been a key factor as Minister of Government and then Prime Minister during my period, so clearly. So the meeting of shareholders will be held, but I can't tell you the exact date because the Minister of Finance is handling this, and he will bring something to Cabinet and we move forward.
Just last week in an interview on RealFM radio, Minister Oliver Joseph mentioned that companies would have had approached government to obtain certain block shares. In one case, he said there were 50% requested, another company requested 30%, but government is saying no. Is there as a thinking now, I know you will be awaiting for that management company and accountant to give better and more professional suggestion, but in the thinking of government, is there a limit as to that will be set for persons to own shares within the remaining shares they now?
No, we haven't set any limit, but certainly we will not have one person or group owning majority shares in a national monopoly asset of the country. I don't think Grenadians understood what we did to ourselves, We have one Grenada company, one electricity company. Not two, not three, one. And we sold it to a family group in Miami. Now the family group, I keep saying, I do not blame them. People got the impression I have a problem with WIB. I don't have any problem, never had, and will not have. But I had a serious problem with the government of the day for selling a national asset, which is a monopoly, which is an essential service that all of us need for all purposes of life, and not giving the local persons an opportunity to have a say. I have a problem. It's demeaning to me, as someone who lived abroad and worked with international companies and had to travel to third world countries advising them about how they deal with the IMF and World Bank and so on. And to come here and have my own country sell out itself, its sovereignty, to a private company. I have a serious problem as a man, as a Grenadian. And I have a problem with any Grenadian. Forget the politics. Any individual Grenadian who is telling me that this was a right decision. I got a problem. Whether they're NNP supporters or NDC supporters, I have a problem. Because I have certain things that are embedded in me. I watch life outside. I know how some of us have thought about. And I am not going to sell my dignity to anybody. I'm telling you this.
Mr. PM, I wish to divert a little from the whole Grand Lake issue. And
Yeah,
to
because
ask,
we spend all the time on this morning, and I'm not the Grand Lake man now, you know. So the Grand Lake man will give you a lot more.
Yes, I wish for you to give me an update, as to the status of a number of projects and investigations that have been taking place, the Marketing and National Importing Board, the shrimp farm, some of which were considered failed projects. And are you concerned that people are wary of what is considered these failed projects? Can you comment?
Well, let's face it. First of all, I want to qualify it because I don't want any perception that the Marketing Board is a failed project under this government by itself. Marketing Board, in view, and I use the word, was poorly run under all governments after the PRG. Let's accept this. What has happened is that no government in the past, except us now, including the NNP of the past, took no steps to do a serious investigation of what taking place at the Marketing Board. That is what's new, a decision to investigate based on information that we had. And as you're aware, very much aware, that the investigation was in fact halted briefly because the Integrity Commission, which is the one initiating that, a motion was brought to the courts to stop it. You know, what is amazing about this? Those who are talking about the investigation and claiming that we're victimizing people are the same ones who went to court to stop the investigation. And we are government that support the laws of the land. And if the court says there is a decision that is pending, we can't do anything. So the Integrity Commission is only recently, they have now, the decision came down by the courts that the government can in fact proceed with the investigation. So that's where we are. You only mentioned Marketing Board, I don't know what. Which one? But that's, we have asked our friends regionally, internationally to find out the individual, and the CBI committee is certainly investigating. I've given clear mandate to the CBI 2 years ago to investigate and to make sure that these persons bring forth information. It's on record, the cabinet record and the CBI record, direction given to investigate and to hold these people accountable. They have indicated recently that they are working, and certainly we hope we get information as much faster than we have been able to get so far. This is not something that I'm proud of. This is one area because I feel these guys used us and abused us in a time period where we are starting a process and maybe the systems in place were not as thorough to ensure that these persons were not able to misuse well, I would say maybe the trust that we placed in them. And mind you, these are people investigated and were cleared in terms of their character by institutions regionally and internationally. So,
what would you say to the people who are wary of some of the deals that are being made by government?
Well, I don't know about deals. All government make investment arrangements. Deal has a funny connotation to it, so I think it's not the best word. I would think you want to use a slightly different word, right? But so anyhow, so I cannot speak about what someone thinks about government action. That's going to be up to them. What we try to do is be as transparent as we can. And one thing you know about me, in my period of service, I don't want to tell lies to the population on any issue. This government and all governments, this Prime Minister and all Prime Minister, and all of us here in this room are individuals. And we cannot say that we are perfect. So I cannot tell you that any decision this government, all decisions that this government has made, or I have made in my own personal life, that I'm proud of it. But it's life. But when we as individuals or government make a decision on the basis of what we thought was best, and we turn out to be wrong, we have to admit it, correct it, and move on. That's life. So any decision that the government has made in the best, what he thought is the best interest of the country, and you can look back at previous governments. Let me say this before I move on to it. What I find strange, one of the worst decisions ever made in this country by our government was the sale of Grenada W.I. Because you gave it away for nothing. We gave it away for nothing. The profit in the tune of hundreds of millions of US dollars. And they still come back and get 60 million, and they could have got much more if we were not for the excellent negotiation skills of the ministers involved. But you're not hearing certain people talking about that. These were some of the worst decisions. No decision we have made have cost the country NNP, and we have made some bad ones. Has cost Grenada hundreds of millions of dollars, and have prevented people from investing in businesses and getting manufacturing. And many times I hear people talking about, why don't you get more juice making? Juice making? Every penny you're making a small manufacturing operation in Grenada goes into electricity costs. That's a fact. So the decision we make today, when the process comes on and we can invest in alternative energy, will yield opportunity to maximize business activities throughout the length and breadth of the country, particularly the rural community in this country. But I don't hear questions about that. I hear NNP's mistakes, or some cases perceived mistakes. But I wish people, and those who are talking, I'm talking to a certain group of persons now. Who was the minister responsible for the public utilities when the asset was given away? Just ask about that. Mr. Transparency and accountability, everything that goes with it. But he knows all about that, but he doesn't know about the sale of the giving of assets, a national security asset away, which is quite unfortunate. Christina is very unfortunate that. So I want to be clear, this government will not attempt to pretend we have not made mistakes. But I think people understand when the mistakes are made and we're honest about it, that we are not afraid to admit it, correct it, and move on. Okay?
Mr. Prime Minister, let me come in here for a while. I hear you use the word sale a lot. Was the company actually sold to WRB?
Well, yes, of course. If you have 51% share control, you're in charge. And they literally sold it. But what is worse, the arrangement then said that they could only buy 51%. But the minister will tell you, appears that additional shares were bought by some company, and I use my word carefully now, who may have had close relationship with WRB. He may be stronger than that, but I'm using that word to avoid any possible legal considerations.
Okay.
So it appears to have they had more influence on 51%, more influence than the 51% that they acquired. So I think it's important to recognize. So yes, sale. You have to say sale. That's why we had to repurchase.
Okay. All right. As it relates to business, I see you speak with a lot of passion about Grenlec, and I am the owner of a very small business.
Yes.
And I feel like there should be more consideration for small business in terms of importing, some of the things that you would need, equipment and so on, so that you can help that business survive. I've spent thousands of dollars within the last few months just getting basic things like microphones and so on as a small business, and that's just me. And I hear from others, particularly import duties. Is there anything that you can promise the young people like myself who's trying to make it, that your government is going to consider making things a little more easier for them to survive?
Well, I think the history is clear, Mikey. We go out of our way to enhance and support small businesses. In fact, we have created avenues of resources directly, not just concessions, where in the GDB, the terms for getting small business loan is very liberal. And in fact, have encouraged people, whether it's fishermen, agricultural sector, and so on, farmers and so on. We have encouraged them. But we also make it clear, you know what happens when everybody believes that the government is the one that is giving them a loan. The perception always they don't have to repay. And there is also a concern about repayment. But we are satisfied that it has helped a lot of businesses in general. Now, the concessions, certainly, we have given concessions to small business. Anytime we receive a request, there are some concessions that is written in law for different types of businesses, but I cannot tell you that every single business activity and the items involved qualify for concession. But when a request is made, and we recognize that job creation is involved, even when it doesn't fall under the normal concession process, cabinet would have to move. And therefore, if we get a request for such concession and it is creating jobs and opportunities, we'll have to have details of this. We certainly will help. Because the more jobs you create, the better for the government. And less problems for those of us who are parliamentarians when people come in to us and asking for help and asking for personal support.
Okay, Prime Minister, I want to switch a little over to COVID-19.
Yes.
Now, in relation to the recent cluster, there were a wide cross-section of the population who believed that the best decision was to implement some sort of movement restriction immediately after that cluster was recognized. I think that was also the recommendation from some health officials. What were the factors that compelled your government to decide in a different direction?
Well, it depends on what you mean by restrictions, because some people are recommending lockdown. And you know what lockdown means? That means close everything. and of course, restrict even the opening of supermarkets, stores, businesses, and so on. And of course, the young persons can't go on the playing field, they can't go on the beach, they can't go pitch marble, they can't play a cricket game in the street, nothing. Let me say, we had an experience when we locked down like this in March. And we had a right to do so because this thing was new. And we all were frightened. I was frightened. Every one of us should be frightened when you heard about the consequences of the implication of COVID-19 on individuals and the countries involved. But you know something? We also learned lessons about the lockdown. You have to understand we are human beings. We are social beings, right? You locked me down. I can't go anywhere. I have to stay home. When time for food, I have to fight for food in a supermarket. That in itself could have caused, if we had serious infection here, a lot of infection. So we learned a lesson of this total lockdown business. And not only that, I remember, and I would always repeat this, I was in discussion with, I avoid clusters of persons in, not like, that's one of the problems I have as an individual now, because my politics is about interaction with people, hugging and laughing and playing with guys, dominoes all over the place. But I am to protect myself and lead by example. So I remember a session with some young brothers, I wouldn't say where, and we were talking, but then they was talking about the problems they were facing financially and jobs and so on. At the end of it, they said, one brother said to me, Doc, you know something? Do everything, but don't lock us down again. That's hard. You know that I left there understanding what the brother was saying. So when this whole idea of a further lockdown and close down everything and so on, like what we did before, I said to people, listen, in a decision, a lockdown, or any decision we make to restrict rights of people, think of, there are 4 major issues to look at. Health, because if you do not have health, you have nothing. So the health considerations are extremely important. The social considerations. You've seen it all over, not in Grenada alone. You watch all over the world. And in countries with a lot of resources and more educational advancement and so on. People are resisting in very serious ways. The human being who's a social animal, he reacts when he feels pressured into listening to authorities and not understanding the consequences. So the social consideration and what it means for people in general, in the way of life, could bring in more problems. And the lack of adherence to what you want. So social considerations are important. Economic considerations. You lock down, no revenue, but more people demanding more services, more people demanding more opportunities, more people out of jobs, and are facing consequences of serious problems of inability to feed their family and to take care of basic needs. You're watching the great United States and other countries. You see thousands of cars lining up for food. Some people telling you they've never in their entire life have to accept food from food banks. You do that here, and you lock people down. You don't have the money or resources to give them food. You have chaos. So I'm saying we have to be careful. And the government revenues to continue to provide help in whatever ways and to, look, people are being paid still, public servants. Even to the point where we tell people, look, this is COVID-19. We agree we sign on to an increase, but we would love to defer it. We didn't say we're not paying. Defer it. It could be, might be middle of the year. The economy shows signs of improvement because you will be part of that consultation. Even that is being resisted by some. So we have that issues that we are facing. And clearly we're in a political environment with people have freedom and rights to speak out and to twist things in all sorts of direction, which can in fact cause even more problems than the lockdown that we're talking about. So all these considerations, Mikey, had to be taken. So I have to say yes, I resisted, together with members of the cabinet, than any absolute total lockdown in a time period that we appear to be controlling the virus. Yes, there was cluster, but we appear to be doing the testing and appear to be identifying the persons that we could have been in contact tracing was being done. We're not perfect. The health people are not perfect. The things that are being done, there are in fact weaknesses, and we strive to increase, to improve on it, and so on. But I did not see need in the face of the level of infection that we had and the problems that related to the cluster, that we should lock down and create all the other problems that can create even far more problems for us than the initiative we took.
And just one other question as it relates to the COVID-19, and I know Sandals, they're going through a hard time right now, and your
Yes,
government has
yes.
expressed,
Yes.
how you feel about it and your condolences and so on.
Sure, it's a tough one.
Right.
Because as you know, while there was the issue of the COVID-19, and there were, of course, issues concerning some of the procedures and the possibility that of infection through weaknesses there. That these were all known based on what was coming from the health people and so on. We have to accept the fact that Bush Choate, as an individual, as an innovator, a Caribbean national with interest in promoting development in the Caribbean. And when he came here and invested in building Sandals, I was not in government. And it was a very liberal sets of concessions that were given. Now, I myself thought the decision was too liberal. But I told Bush, I said, while I disagree with some of what you asked for and got, I am not going to say a word publicly. Unlike some of us in politics on the opposite side. Anything the NNP does, no matter how good it is for the country, we run our mouths. I don't believe in this. So I express a private view, but I gave my public support because jobs are being created for the country and so on. So he brought in hundreds of jobs to the country. So I always respected him. And over the years, he has been there with us as a person. And when he came he called me and of members of the government and said he understood the seriousness of the problem we are facing with all the hotels being closed. And he said, Prime Minister, I want to give you a good piece of news. Sandals is going to take the risk to reopen the hotel and bring back over 600 workers. I mean, I was elated. Because no other hotel had the resources or took the initiative. And I understood what he was doing and the sacrifices that were being made to reopen the hotel and bring back literally all his workers. And he made the point, and we knew it was true, that in doing so, he would have to suffer millions of losses initially because he'd have to pay these workers for full-time salary for several months, because you don't expect the hotel would become satisfactory with persons in there overnight in a month or two. But he decided that he needed to make the sacrifice and use that as an enhancement to get people to start coming back to his properties throughout the region, and including in Grenada's case. And I felt that was a noble decision because I knew it was going to take a lot of resources that he had to put in. So I believe that the country certainly have lost a friend in every respect. And therefore I certainly expressed to Adam, his son, and members of the Sandals family my own personal regret and sympathies, and certainly we hope that knowing Bush as I knew him, that he would have put in place the kind of system to ensure that the Sandals and the Beaches brand, which he owned, would continue at the level of service that it was when he was alive.
They have not accepted responsibility for the recent outbreak. Does government still hold the position that they are? And what do you plan to do about
Mikey,
it?
I really do not wish, especially when you see the passing of an individual. I think when we are faced with the consequences of someone's passing, it is not the best time to continue to label any negative. I don't think it is in his interest, in the company's interest, or in government's interest to continue to pursue that. I just have to be honest. I think we let's sleep in dogs' lies, so to speak, particularly at this time. I hope that is understood.
Thank you. I have some questions that pertain to the
Yes.
economy. Now, from January last year, the world started with COVID, and by March we were all into a full-blown global pandemic. Reviews after reviews from the World Bank, and the IMF, CDB, they are showing contractions for various, throughout the Carriacou economy, throughout there is contractions. Has government of Grenada considered any other area, low-hanging fruit economic activities that we will grab onto, with the exception of construction, as to get gainful employment for nationals? And my other question with that is, recently we would have gotten the 25 million from the World Bank credit. Has there been any specific, what are the specific allocations as with regard to that money? I do have more, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned, let me just make the point. If you examine the projected budget and economy growth in as far as Grenada is concerned, it's probably the only country in the region, and probably maybe in the world, I think maybe, subject to correction, that the IMF and others have projected over 5% growth for Grenada in 2021. So while the entire world economy is seen as contracting further, Grenada was not estimated to be the one that will. That does not mean that we are doing that well. It simply means, because as you know, growth is relative. If you fell down so much in 1 year, and the next year you recover to some extent, it doesn't mean that you're doing that well, comparatively speaking, to 2019. You may be doing well relative to 2020, but not 19. So I'm just qualifying it because I have to explain this, because some people might believe I'm saying that Grenada is back up and running and doing extremely well. And the reason they were giving this is because their estimation of the major projects that we have for a small economy, like the Liver project, would bring tremendous, and they of course did their research and of course the intelligence to find out that these projects were in fact not just pie in the sky, they were real, because a lot of investment has already been made. And similarly, the Manhattan project, which we did not talk about until it actually was on the ground. Boots were on the ground as far as that project. And then you have the Range project in St. David's, another major one, and they're all getting ready to start. And then the Silver Sands group are now looking at 3 major projects. Now, if we have all these projects come on stream, clearly you have a tremendous improvement on the economic stock of the country. So tourism related activities in the hotel construction area must be a key area of economic activity. And if you recall, I think it's not difficult to understand why the growth aspect can be that quite significant. If you recall, when Ivan struck, you remember the country was flattened, right? If you recall, all of us suffered. And at that point, tourism disappeared because all the hotels were on the ground. And it took about 1.5 years for the hotel industry to be back on. And yet we had a growth about 10%. You know why? Because everybody was building back their houses. And so most of the jobs, in fact, people had to come from other countries to help us to rebuild. Because they were there was a lot of people who were in the hotel industry, went into construction. And so the economic activity was quite enormous because of the spin-off related to the construction sector. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be the same thing, because we do not have that wide destruction, because the agricultural sector was flattened on the ground at that particular time, and so on. So I expect the agriculture would be a major area of opportunities, because the hotel sector, the major hotels are going to be contracting farmers, as Carriacou have done, to contracting farmers to produce food for them. They're in touch with farmers around the country, so, and helping them at the level with their production level, providing materials and of course the irrigation support system, because they don't want a case, and you and I know this, that the worst thing that could happen is that when the rainy season is on and you have water, then we have a lot of pumpkin, we have a lot of watermelon and so on, and then so the people get all that they want, and then some part of the year they can't service the guests with the same level of food and vegetables that they wish. So they're going to be contracting them and giving them support. Sandals has agreed to do this. Sandals has agreed. The Liverer Group has agreed to train workers. Range has said they're going to be, maybe a year into their contract, they're going to be hiring young people and training them. So when the hotel is open in a year and 2 years, there will be trained staff. So a lot of young people will get opportunities as the hotel. Similarly, in Manhattan, as you know, Manhattan people have already started hiring persons, and they're going to be involving with, as a group, the other hotel facilities to the hotel school, training people, young people for opportunities in the hotel industry. And there are several categories of opportunities that they involve. So I'm optimistic. We have to be cautious, clearly, because this pandemic is not something we can close our eyes and say, well, we're sure what's going to happen. We have to do what we have to, but at the same time, I feel confident that if things work out the way it looks at this particular time, that we should have a much better year than we had in 2020.
What if it doesn't work out?
Well, we make adjustments as we have to, and that's precisely, and it means that we'll have to do belt tightening, you know. That's the nature of life, you know. And just as an individual, you could plan all you want for your family projection and activities, and as things adjust, if you lose income from a business or a job or something, then you have to adjust accordingly. So that we can't plan for everything, but we have to adjust ourselves accordingly as things occur.
My other question has to do, earlier on you mentioned that, and we knew that for quite a while, you're a champion of commercialization,
Yes.
removing as much as possible from the state. We know that of a couple institutions and organizations and bodies that would have eventually has now become commercialized. What is government looking, what are the areas government looking at to commercialize? Are we looking at, say, like, for example, gravel and concrete? Are there a list of institutions we're looking to commercialize?
No, we have already stated over the years, you know. It's unfortunate up to now we have not got the kind of investor we want. We have stated that we wanted to commercialize gravel and concrete, and we are looking at investors. But the conditions, see, that's the problem I mentioned with the sale of Grand Lake. It's not just privatizing. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to set the conditions. Because let's face it, gravel and concrete maybe not as essential a service as Grand Lake, but it is an essential service to some extent. And therefore, whatever we do, and whoever we get into relationship with as well as control, then we have to dot the I's and cross the T's. And some of the persons who came forward have not agreed to meet the conditions that we have. We still are open, but under the conditions that are satisfactory to the people of the country. And so we are still actively looking at this. But let me say an area that's excitement, and Mikey mentioned about small business. It's time the Grenadians have to come to terms. And many of these tourism sites, government can't run them. You know, look at a potential place in Granitang. A serious Grenadian company, small group of persons, management skills, can take that place, make it something, do well for themselves and create a lot more jobs, and government will get a lot more revenue. Right now, is government getting revenue there? No. It kind of, and that's successive governments. As I said over and over, it's not just an indictment of NNP. I would say all government. The structure of government by its nature, with its constitutional setup, makes it extremely difficult to manage and operate serious businesses that can bring the kind of benefit to the country that I hope and pray, maybe that wasn't my time, but that we'll make some changes there that we can liberalize our economy far more than we are able to do. So the sites, I saw what 2 young Grenadians have done in Anodale. I'm proud of it. I wish we could find more Grenadians. We have Lebers Hill in St. Patrick's. We have more beautiful sites all over the country. I would like to see young people take on this, and we can provide soft loans to help them to start up. I'm sure they'll be able to create jobs, enhance the community, make Grenada more beautiful and more rewarding to come to see the potential and opportunities and the beauty that we have, and at the same time improve their own life. And so, to me, doing this is a win-win for everybody. Government, country, individuals, and the persons, the investors. So I give you 2 areas. I'm sure there are other potential areas of opportunities.
One of the areas, something you mentioned a few minutes ago, was with regard to the hotel and tourism projects. Some people are still not very clear with regard to ownership of the lands that will be used for the development of this project. We mentioned of 4 major ones: the Silver Sands, Livera, Mount Hatman, and Six Sense. Six Sense, it is well known, it is on some part of private property that was purchased. Can you tell us what is the terms of ownership that these properties have with regard to the development? Was any of those sold recently?
Yes.
What type of lease do we have?
Yes, let me say this. I have stated openly, this is not news, that if an investor comes here and he can enhance the possibility of proper implementation of the projects and make sure that it comes on stream, and the financial institution is insisting on freehold in the process of doing, and bringing thousands of jobs or hundreds of jobs, an economic spin-off to the country, I have no difficulty providing freehold. So there are negotiations in place with Range for freehold of government lands in Range. There are serious negotiations for freehold lands in Manhattan under the conditions that the government can be proud of. Similarly, Livera, I don't have any difficulty. If one person wants to criticize me on that basis, you know me. I am open to criticism, but I firmly believe that I'm doing the best for the country. When these investors, you think they could take we land and go with it? They can't go anywhere with it. Not only that, if our grandchildren or great-grand in the future decide they want it, the acquisition clause is there. You could always buy back. We have now bought back Grenlec, which was a difficult one to get back. So getting back land, so sometimes the only thing I say, the rights of the sea cannot be sold to anybody. Let's be clear on this. And that has nothing to do with freeholds, it's a question to do with the sovereignty and the rights of the people of the country.
Okay, so I want to ask a question, please, as it relates to a project that is affecting, you may say, people's livelihood, their homes are threatened, and so that's a Brickwater project.
Yes.
It has been said that enough studies has not gone into that project before it was implemented.
Yes.
What can you give the people to look forward to that is being so badly affected in recent
Well,
times?
we've taken steps, I could tell you this. In fact, we're going to Cabinet to do something to some of the people who are having to move, be displaced, to provide some direct financial support for the movement of those persons and to do some immediate work to protect that section of the land. But we're also looking at a serious study because to decide on some of the problems that we've had to ensure that it does not, in fact, create further difficulties for the people and the area. The project, in fact, there were studies done. But clearly, you never plan for every single thing that happens afterwards. But clearly, from what we have seen, there are some damages, and we can't say the exact reasons. There are some amateur environmentalists, and if I was to speak out, I would be considered to be one of them, who have all sorts of solution and of course who have concluded on the reasons for those things. I cannot speak like this. I remember with the problem we have in Molyneux, there were all kind of speculation. Well, some say it's the gravel area, the type of material there. Some say the building of homes there. Some say the sea, and have people bring solution. Prime Minister, I have a solution for this. You could do this and do that. I say, wait, no, I am not an engineer. I have no skills in that area. You don't have. So while I appreciate your views and ideas, we have to go with a serious study. And it's costing us money, and that is being done. And that is what we have to do in any serious situation. So we may have learned from that lesson of the breakwater of Cristalina, and we will do what we have to do to move forward and correct it and move forward.
I think, let me ask again, in terms of the oil that was found
Yes.
in Grenadian waters, where are we with that?
Well, I think the minister has spoken. Minister Bowen has spoken. I've heard him several times on press conferences on this. He's said a number of issues related to this, and there are more from the studies and the tests that have been done, and all the seismic studies, there are much more gas than oil. And you know, Trinidad has shown tremendous interest in this, and of course have decided to invest, and their companies. The problem you have now is simply this: since COVID-19, not COVID, even before that, they had a serious drop. You remember we have this, the US is now producing the type of area they now getting oil from. They have a name they call it. American, fracking, right. They are producing more oil through fracking. And you know what they're doing now, because the price of oil has dropped, they've all stopped. Because it's not economic to spend all that money and to sell the oil at the price that doesn't make it commercial. So the investors who were anxious and still interested said, you have to be clear. If we're spending all that money now, because they have to drill more, and it costs hundreds of millions of dollars in drilling. We are not thinking that this is the best way to spend the money we have. So there's still a potential there, and Trinidad is definitely interested in the pipeline to get some of our gas. So it's there, and we are confident that the potential will in fact be implemented one day sooner than later. But we have to be realistic. COVID has even worsened the situation. With the price of oil, as you recall, oil was selling $30 and 30-something a barrel. Yeah, and so on. You remember the case of Trinidad when oil was in the 70s and 80s, Trinidad said they would give the islands a certain percentage, I think it was about 25% of the profits above a certain amount per barrel. So all of us benefited. But the minute the price dropped, there's nothing like that coming in again. So until that price goes back up again, we don't expect that we'll get any resources from this. So it's the economics playing out here.
On the question of a vaccine, COVID-19, what progress have we made in securing a vaccine, and is the government considering making it mandatory?
We're looking at several sources to get vaccine. PAO is helping, but we're not going to depend on them. The sub-regional organization, OECS, is also into this. Carriacou is also taking initiative, but we're working with our friends, private sector friends, the individuals who are living here who have connections and resources and have offered to help us and with the resources and to acquire this the vaccine that is now being produced by Oxford University. Can't remember the name of that one. They are initiative to be able to acquire some of that. The good thing with Grenada, our population is not a very big one. So the minute you get a couple 100,000 of that vaccine, we can start serious vaccination in the country. I certainly would advise, but remember, you can't force people. I'm not going to pass no law to force a man to take a vaccine that can protect himself, and so on. So I would certainly, I'll be taking mine very early, and to lead by example, and I would certainly be advising all members of the cabinet and leaders of the country and leaders of the business community and so on, churches and so on, because we have to lead by example. And I believe if we can do this, and if we are able to achieve this by the third quarter of this year, to vaccinate our country, we might see a much better, brighter Christmas season than we had this year. I've never been able to sit at home in my own house and Christmas. This is not the Grenadian Christmas that I grew up with. Even my mom and my sister who came in for Christmas, they had to be by themselves having lunch. I mean, we did some virtual lunches, but we couldn't be interacting with each other as we normally do. This virus has changed all our lives, and that's why I tell people, what it said, it is what it is. My friend Trump, famous word, it is what it is, but we have to cope.
Just one, as you brought it up. You brought it up. I wasn't going to go there.
I'm sorry I brought it up. I'm sorry I didn't.
I wasn't going to go there. But since you brought it up, well, we all saw what happened. Capitol Hill yesterday. What's your comment on that? First of all, what would you say to the president himself and a general statement on what has happened?
No, I think clearly, I think whatever happens to America clearly would certainly affect all our developing countries, as you know, given the relationship we have had, and we have lots of our citizens who have gone to the United States and done very well and making serious contributions. So we must have an interest in what is taking place in America, and therefore, whatever problems that exist, as what occurred yesterday, and whatever difficulties, the virus, for example, the fact that you've had several Grenadians who died during the period and still dying, there were others still dying, clearly interests us, and certainly we do what we can to provide all the support, morally and otherwise. But I think the American public they clearly have to deal with this. And I am one who firmly believe that if you have to be a good leader, you have to be a good loser. That's my fundamental philosophy. I don't think, and I say this to my own members of my team. Yeah, I remember when we lost the election in 2008. Some members of my team, they thief, they this. And they want me to, I say, listen, mister, if they thief, they are right to thief. You have the right to do what you have to do to make sure they don't thief. So stop that. And remember this, you hope to get back in the government one day. You have lost. You remember my statement after we lost? Go back and check it. I congratulated the government and said we wish them the best in the interests of the country. And whatever good deeds you do, I will praise you. But if you fall short, I would also have the right to criticize and to provide alternative. So I say that to everybody. And I say to my President of the United States, be a good loser. That to me, that's all I would say as an individual, and to wish the American people the best as they go forward. Because clearly, a stable and peaceful America is a good thing for Grenada and the rest of the world.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. I do have a series of questions. I don't know how long we're going to be going on for.
Sure, I don't know how long
Okay, I'm going to start with what I consider important to our profession of journalism. Grenada do not have freedom of information legislation enacted, but we did have draft. We do have a newspaper act, and we do not have digital services legislation. COVID-19 has literally not just speeded up, but forced us to get on board with that level of technology. What considerations are in there for the future for us with regard to bringing ourselves up to legislation? We do not even have data protection laws locally. These are among the amendments, laws that government is looking
Well, we certainly would like to work with the Media Association and any major changes. And you know that over the years, I've always shown willingness to do so. And, you know, I've always ended up with the bitter end of the stick when I have stuck my head out to support this. And unfortunately, even when the persons who were in charge of the Media Association were involved in the finalization of the media bill that we wanted to go, they turned out when we were thinking of moving the next step, then they behaved as if every weakness that they perceive it to be, as if it was me who initiated it. And I told myself, for the next time we are involved, I'm not going out there and stick my neck out. I'm working with individuals, in the institutions, to bring in something, because the media must also know it is in their interest to have a responsible act that guides their own profession. Because you and I know, just like you say politicians have weaknesses, there's serious weaknesses in the media, and we have to accept it. But who is to make the changes? The media has to also be clear in dealing with some of the weaknesses. When I see some of the things that are out there in the name of media, I don't hear anybody talking about it. But let a politician make one mistake. You hear noise all over the place. The only man that seems to take on our media is Trump. And I'm not necessarily saying what he's doing is necessarily the ideal thing, because certainly I'm a strong supporter of freedom of the press. And I say a lot of times, some of them I believe are highly irresponsible, because they report even before they check facts. But I say I prefer to hear their voices than to attempt to close their voices, because you would have the worst end of the stick if you try to do this. So I'm a strong supporter of the liberalization in that area, but I certainly hope that the media can work with the Ministry of Information and come forward with something that they both agree with. It's not about just the media, it's about the society and all of us and our children and grandchildren's future. Let's leave something for them.
My other question has to do with the police force. 2019, we would have seen from protests to defiance. Mm-hmm. We also would have seen police shooting. When I look at my notes, I don't think we had so much as to compare with previous years as we saw in 2020. What is your message to persons who happen to be affected by the police shooting, and what is there a policy or strategy in going forward to deal with that level
Well,
of
of course, the Commissioner
human
is
rights?
certainly working with his policemen to ensure that that one has to be very careful in questioning the use of force. And that's why the training of the police has to be crucial. Because force is not the first resort, it's the last resort. And I think a lot of times the human factor gets into play in dealing with a dispute. So certainly, the more training, and I think the Commission is committing himself to that, the better the policemen will be to deal with conflicts outside there as much as possible. And I empathize with anyone who gets hurt because of an incident with the police, and especially when it could have been avoided by maybe a different approach, because that's the nature of life. But we're all human beings, and many times when we speak as Monday morning quarterbacks who talk after the fact, and we are not there to see exactly what the circumstances are. So we have to be sympathetic to any injury that occurred to persons, and sometimes rightly so, and sometimes the police may be right in the approach or in the decisions that they made with respect to law and order. So training, more education, more development, and of course more understanding of the public with respect to their responsibility. If a policeman is doing something outside that you know that is not right, then report it. Because the Commissioner is one who certainly wants to make sure his police officers are held accountable to any wrong in issues or decisions that they make outside in the name of law and order.
My other question has to do with, it was also a heavily spoken about subject during 2020, had to do with marijuana decriminalization
Yes.
and legalization. There is an announcement that there is a committee to look into the Carriacou recommendation. Are you able in a position now to give us an idea as to what is the status of that committee in terms of recommendation and consultation?
Yeah, they're working, and there will be consultation. But Peter David, as you know, has been asked to lead that process, and he's working. I would assume that sometime during this year that there will be some legislation, which after the consultation process. But I've already signaled my own position on this issue. Everyone knows my position with smoking, whether it's cigarette or marijuana over the years. I'm very clear on this over the years. But we have to come to terms that our views 20 years ago on one issue is quite different than it is in 2021 and 2020. And therefore, my position on marijuana use has evolved over a period of time. I'm not ashamed to say so. And I don't think, and as I said, to me it's a waste of court time and legal time to go arresting someone for a joint of marijuana outside there. I'm not encouraging it. I make the point I don't smoke, and I believe it's not the healthiest thing. Under certain conditions for medicinal purposes, it may be useful. But smoking by itself, whether it's marijuana or cigarette, is dangerous to the human health and human body. So I will never be a one encouraging the liberalization in every sense of the word and encouraging people to smoke, whether it's cigarette or marijuana outside there. Or even drinking too liberally outside there. All these are factors that can create serious health problems for ourselves. So the laws will come into place, and I think we'll have in place system to ensure that we don't send the wrong message, that it's free to just sell drugs, drink and smoke as you want and so on. I would not be part of that.
Mr. Prime Minister, in terms of immigration, earlier this week we would have heard a news item with regard to somebody who entered Grenada as a refugee, and eventually Grenada become a third-party holding state, despite the person being charged for a violation of some sort of immigration act. Are you in a position? What I have discovered is that over the years, Grenada has been a third holding party because we have not signed on to all the convention as with regard to refugees and keeping them and so forth. But are you in a position to tell us whether or not we would have had, how much refugee holders we would have had for the past these few years, and in terms of persons who have been deported to the country for 2020 during the pandemic, how much persons we would have had been deported to the country, and how much Grenada sent
No,
away?
I don't have that data, but every now and then we get persons that have been deported, and of course we've always said to our bigger friends outside that they ought not to be just deporting people and not informing us, because many of the persons who have been deported, at least some of them at least, are homegrown in those countries. And I don't think it's fair that you help to develop them in your environment to be what they are, and give them the skills that can, in fact, that you do not necessarily want, and then you send them back to us, and we are not in a position with the resources and social and other issues to cope. So we've been always saying you need to inform us and help us in the process with some programs that can help to reclimatize these individuals back in our society and be able to help them to live a life of more involved in supporting themselves responsibly than necessarily getting involved in criminal activity. So that's one. I have had, to tell you the honest truth, I don't remember more than one case only recently that was brought to my attention. And I remember we have investigated. I believe we have moved to deal with it, but I don't want to be absolutely sure what has happened. I can't remember exactly what the decision was. I believe we may have, based on advice given, we may have agreed to allow the person to stay, maybe I should stop it because I can't remember the exact situation. But I know one came to our attention and we would have been dealing with it.
I do have one final question because
Yes.
I know we're coming to wrap up.
Yes.
And this has nothing to do with the state, but more or less to reach your political future. during the last election, you did mention that you would not be contesting again. Have you finally made a decision as to that you will not be contesting the next election? And how soon will you be presenting a new leadership to the party?
I think a decision has been made. I would have preferred not to have. I think there are rationale based on my own colleagues' views and general perception, and this might be the right time after the next election to hand over the reins to someone. So it looks likely, highly likely, that I will certainly run, unless, of course, I have some health issues or physical problems, and I'm sure you recognize that I don't look too badly. So maybe better than someone to see me go out and calling me old. I know I look better and able to do some things better than some of them who look much younger than I am. So
Care to elaborate, Mr. Prime Minister?
Elaborate on what, Mikey? And what I can do better than others? Don't go there. All right, colleagues.
All right, Prime Minister, I think this was a nice light note on which to wrap up this interview. I'd like to thank the members of the media who were present here this morning for this first in a series of what would be periodic in-person engagements with the Prime Minister, as we would have indicated. Thank you so much for your presence, Prime Minister. Thank you for facilitating this interview here this morning. To our viewers and listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Press Secretary Philomena Robertson. We'll see you again next time.
Okay.
You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada via www.hardtalkgrenada.com. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada via www.hardtalkgrenada.com.
My enemies' walls are bound to crumble, and to the floor their spears will fall. I've been made and sealed with love, but time to battle, I'll find them all. I felt the whips and remember chains, but my sword has been forged by my father's flames. Fight your fears and heal your pain, and victory will be in your name.
I used to be weak, but I'm not weak no more. I found the strength of my ancestors deep down in my African core. I used to be frightened, I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer. Come on, let's conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Rise up and conquer them. Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior. I
fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David turns Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people, you go meet it up. Pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it up. No weapon that form against us shall not prevail. No man that rise against us, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer, no I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, no I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You're everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of life. Send down your warriors with the hello. They carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming. I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no other. Could it be that we is my soul? No weapon that form against us shall not prevail. No man that rise against us, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer, no I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, no I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. I am a man, I am a champion, I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the various radio stations: 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 RealFM Radio, 92.9 Cicero Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the live video stream, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you may be. A very special good morning to you. And of course, with me, or next to me in studio, I have none other than my co-host, Mr. Roland Bola. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you, Miss Duncan, and of course, good morning to all our listeners, those who are listening us by whatever platform. We say thank you for joining. It's fairly good morning. There has been some rain. In fact, in the southern part of the island, St. George, the Grandlands area, as I looked up about 5 minutes ago, it was fairly grey, and we had some drizzling at the time. I imagine based on the weather pattern that we are seeing and the warnings that we got, we may see a bit more rain, or it's quite possible that by later afternoon things may be different. But whatever it is, weather-wise, I really do hope that most of us did have a really pleasant night's sleep, that waking up this morning we were grateful and thankful to the Lord for causing us to see another one of his majestic days in which that he has made, and of course that we'll do everything within our power to make today purposeful, productive, and well meant. We are on a little bit later this morning than normal, and it was due to the fact that we were all listening to, and it was being carried on our program and other radio stations, that live interview with Prime Minister Kit Mitchell and three of the nation's journalists. It is my understanding from what was said by Ms. Philomena Robinson this morning, who is the press secretary, that this is just the first of a series of those kind of engagements they would want to be doing throughout the year at different periods in the year. And ultimately, they will want to rotate the journalists or change them. So maybe by the next time, whenever it will be, I don't know, whether it's a month, 2 months, or 3 months from now, we may see 3 or 4 different journalists. But, you know, we want to shout everyone out there who have been a part of the Hard Talk family. We're grateful to have you. We're thankful that you have constantly been listening and commenting and giving information and giving your criticism when you think that is necessary. As we always say, we try to be very factual and straightforward here. We are not the repository of all knowledge and all the information, but we give what we have and we try to seek what we don't from credible sources. So thank you again for joining. And I do believe, Michelle, that this morning's interview with Prime Minister was very enlightening.
It was.
In terms of some of the issues that was raised and the responses we got.
Yeah, and I want to point out what my most favored part of his interview was, and it wasn't that he spoke about a lot of issues, which was great. You know, the journalists, I must say, did ask some very potent questions. And I often say to people, because a journalist in ask what you want them to ask, it mean that it's not a good journalist.
Yes.
The journalist asks what they believe is best for whatever newscasting they want to do further in the day and so on. The answers that they seek, they will do that. If for some reason you feel like you want to ask a journalist a question to ask, then by all means post it the day before or whatever. But I mean, you can't go on another live video and expect that the journalists are going to just take your questions just like that and so on. They are doing their job, right? But my most favored part of that interview was when the Prime Minister alluded to the fact that they have made mistakes, that they are not a perfect government. Because, you know, there are a lot of people out there who sit and say, oh, NNP feel they is the best, or NNP feel they can't make no mistake, or NNP feel that they are they're perfect. And you've said it multiple times here, that this government has never said that they were perfect. And, you know, coming from the Prime Minister, I think it gives more power to that statement. Because as a leader, it is important. One of the most important things as a leader is to identify your mistakes, but not just dwell on them, but be able to move on from that and grow and to build from those mistakes. So I think that was one of the most important statements that he made, in my opinion. This is just my opinion.
Well, I just wanted you to qualify that by saying that that's your opinion, and you are entitled to that. Yes. Because you know, so many people may have different takes from what he said.
Yes.
And of course, to me, that's not a new occurrence. I've heard him say it many times. I've said it many times. Other members of the government and of the party have said it many times, and that doesn't say that they are not the best. Of course, NNP is the best government for this country at this time, and in times to come. However, they are not perfect. Mm-hmm. They have made mistakes, and they will continue to make mistakes. As a matter of fact, one person put it that way to me: if you are not doing anything, then you can't be making any mistakes.
It's true.
And it is as a result of they being so purposeful in the quest to have action and to have things done and to ensure that the country continues to move and the economy grows and people's lives become easier as the days and weeks and months go by. Hence the reason they have been making mistakes, because they're active. They are very active, and they're doing things that will cause them from time to time to make mistakes.
Yeah, we have a call on the line. Let's take this call. we seem to have lost it. Caller, if you are listening, then you can go ahead and give us a call back. But yes, we are going to open the lines early because I do want to hear from people. I do want to hear what was your take on this. And I think it's a very good gesture as well. We know COVID has provided a lot of restrictions as it relates to interaction between the media and a physical interaction, I should say, between media personnel and members of government. And I think this is an absolute great gesture where they can sit comfortably without the restrictions of technology to ask their questions. And, you know, they would be prepared beforehand, knowing what they really want to ask and being able to give to the public that quality of information that we so desperately seek at time, face to face. So,
Not up close and personal, but
face to face. We have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
And how are you doing today?
I'm good, and how are you?
Quiet, you know, Monday to the dock.
Morning, sir. Morning.
How are you doing today?
Great. We want to examine what the other doc, the real doc, what he said. I don't know. I don't know if you were able to catch the interview or part thereof.
Oh, you think I could miss that?
Well, I hope you didn't miss that. But,
No, I could miss.
but life sometimes carries us in different directions. Sometimes at the times when we don't want to, and so we sometimes miss very important things. But it's good that you did.
This station apparently is becoming my main eating plate today.
Wow.
Yes.
So
So
I-
give
I
us
tell
your views, you know, quickly, because we want to give other people a chance
I'll tell
to.
you something.
Yes.
You know, I would say this thing about this Prime Minister. And I interact with many, many Prime Ministers and Ministers of Government over the years. I think you got my letter. And every
Yeah.
single Minister of Government got my letter. Some responded and some did not respond. But I could tell you something about this Prime Minister. We had our hang-ups during the days of the Central Garage.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing he said on the air, he said it did had some interference with the issues of the Central Garage.
Mm-hmm.
And he was wrong, and he would not do it again. He said it on the air.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me think differently about the Prime Minister. I was not a critic of him because I know he's a brilliant man. But what happened, we was angry. And he admitted, and he says, look, yes, I was wrong, and he will not be doing those things again. And that caused me to like the man more. Not as a politician, because I don't like politicians, but as an individual. And when he says he make mistakes, I think this is the truth. He corrected. This is a man that if I correspond to him, unlike other prime ministers, he will respond by instructing his secretary, and he would sign these letters for himself, so I know it is coming from him. And he always says, thank you for your advice. He does say, thank you for your suggestion. He says, I'm not an advisor. But he's go that deep to say, thank you for your advice, and keep the letters coming, because it's people like you who are keeping me in office. And I think that is what you call leadership.
Yes.
That's what leaders do, as opposed to some other people where they don't respond and they say anything at all. And I get angry because I don't give any empty information to anybody. If I go to write a minister of government or any public official, I would quickly address, CC this letter to the president, and he could say that. I will CC these communication to him, to notice him that, look, I have made this move in the interest of the citizens and the country. Here is the document. You know, I continue to do that. But I'm saying that one thing he said, and he was squeezed, and you're saying, well, look, you know, I was predicting that this is his last term.
Yes.
And he admits now that it is likely that this is not his last term. And I understand the reason why, because I think you are helping the process.
Yes.
We got to groom, we got to correct to ensure that when he departs, that we don't have a void. And I think he's taking that into consideration, and he have to, because it will be very, very critical if we lose the leaders like him, and we cannot replace somebody who has the ability to govern. And I know this very, very carefully and seriously. Then he has a responsibility now to ensure that he fast-track the kind of development that he wants before he goes. Because when he leaves, it might be a different kettle of fish. So I want to put that in his ears. There's a lot of work to be done now between now and the next 5 years. It should be done. The foundation, or called the infrastructure for the extension of the economy, right, to create jobs and revenue must be done within this 5 year and the next 5 year. Because after that, it might be some struggle with those who are remaining there. And it's a few of them, I think, that will go at that point in time, not him alone, and based on my prediction. So I want to put that in his ears. The work that ought to be done between now and the next 5 years must be done now, seriously, in terms of leadership and the actualizing and things on the ground for the economy. I want to leave it for there.
All right.
Well, we thank you for your observations. We thank you for your comments. As per usual, have an enjoyable day.
We have another caller on the line.
No, already.
Hello, good morning. Hello. Seems like we have a bad connection there. So caller, check your connection and call back. So Mr. Bola, a lot was said this morning, and I think it's an opportunity for persons to sit and reflect on what I'm taking a course in Introduction to Psychology, and we're learning about the brain. And yesterday I learned that the brain cannot complete successfully two major tasks. While we like to pride ourselves in the fact that we can multitask, the brain is not able to complete two major tasks at the same time, which is why you can't pat your head and rub your belly at the same time. So, with that being said, I want people to understand that when you listen to a press conference and all you're listening to do is to respond, then you are not going to learn anything, because you are trying to do two major functions at the same time. You're trying to listen and respond at the same time, and it cannot work. You must listen, let whatever it is that is being said be digested. Then you have to listen again in order to respond. That is how it works. And I want people to understand that, because generally you would wonder, well, why is it that people are not grasping what is being said? Why is it that some things that are said are being asked again a second and a third time, or being misrepresented in the media or on social media or so on? It is because people don't actively listen to what is happening. So I want to task people, or I want to encourage people to listen first, to digest, and then, or listen to comprehend, and then listen to respond. We have a call on the line. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Duncan. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you,
How
sir.
are everything?
Very well.
Yeah, I was listening to the discussion with Dr. Mitchell and the three journalists. I enjoyed. What I like is that a lot of people call and say, well, getting old tend to leave. And then when you say that he may be old, but then he could perform better than a lot of young people.
Well, I didn't know if he said the word perform, but he said he can do a lot of things better.
A lot of things. A lot of things. Which is
Better.
Which is
And Mikey asked him to explain, elaborate.
Don't go there.
He said, don't go there. I mean, that has become a favorite expression.
Yeah, and this is so true.
Yes.
Because when you look at some people today, Mr. Bola and Mr. Duncan, you wonder to ask yourself, who is his father and who is his son?
Yes.
Because the things that they do to themselves, I say to people, not only things that they do to themselves and how they treat themselves, it makes you look old. Right?
Yes.
And there is some thing that you know definitely what to do. It could make you, it could bring a lot of stress. And I say stress makes people look older than the age. As Pharaoh said, age is just a number. It's just a number. And if you always tell yourself you're old, it will chop on you. But always believe to yourself you're young and you're strong, right? And you could do, but I think you have to preserve yourself for when you get old. But just when you're young and you abuse yourself in a young age, that make you look old by the time you're 40, 50 years. 50 years. I want to say I love what he said again. Like a man, a responsible man, a man of integrity, a man who love and care for people, we always, when he do something, he will always acknowledge that he did something wrong. But the man that think that what he did is right, and when he know he's wrong, we always continue to do what is wrong. What is wrong, because he always think what he do is right. But I always say, right is right, wrong is wrong. There is no way at all. Right could change to wrong, and wrong could change to right. Right, it could change. I would say to people, I can see what I would say. Hate. And even look to see what happened in America. Because of the hatred you have, some people have for some people. That what could cause to happen in a country. And you see the power of a leader is important. A leader should know his or her purpose. And you have to know what to say. Because what you say, people could take it and they could act on it.
Yeah.
So a leader is important. Now, what the leader say it is important because people act on it and they do it. You know, like somebody saying time in Gary days, Gary will not tell people go and do something. But what he says, people could read through the line. And then by reading through the line, they know exactly what he means. So in case something happens, he could say to them, I never said that to you. Right? I never said that to you. So be careful when you're a leader, be careful. And you have to love people, and you have to treat people the right way for people to return back the kindness and love back to you.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Duncan, Mr. Bola, have a wonderful God bless you.
Well, thank you so much. We thank you for your takeaway. And of course, the lines are open. And for those of you who have heard all or part thereof, we just want to hear your views. Halfway through the program already, and we'd like to hear what you think about the interview this morning with Prime Minister, some of the things he spoke about, what was of greatest interest to you, and what you probably, there are some things that you was hoping those journalists that was present today may have asked, and they probably, maybe one addition that or suggestion that can be given to the press secretary is probably, I don't know, maybe allow, we have 15 constituency, or maybe we can take it by parish. Say when next they have one, they have the 3 or 4 journalists that are selected to be in, and maybe they allow one question per parish to be sent in.
Or per ministry as well.
Or maybe not as well, because I don't think you want too much of those, because you don't want to cloud the hour and a half, whatever time they have, with too many outside questions, because the fact that you're inviting the journalists is because you want them to have sufficient time to have that interaction, that question and answer session. And so you don't want to take away too much of that from them. But sometimes you do have members of the public who may have a question, or sometimes a question that is related to the particular locality that the journalist may not be aware of and may not ask about. So you probably create an avenue, but you have to control it. It's not an open thing where any and every one just asks questions, because that can water down the whole thing. But
absolutely,
probably.
I have a comment on the live video here. It says, "Good morning. I would say great interview. The journalist was on point, but hearing my Prime Minister saying that he will be up for the next election, way to go, Doc. The progress has to continue." I think whether he's there or not, the progress will still continue.
Well, we'll want that, of course. There are just some people who inspires confidence in others. There are some people that has that charismatic nature and way about them, that when they appear and when they speak and when they are at the helm, people seem to be motivated much more. Not that others are not capable of doing the job, but there are just some gifts that some people have. The gift that Dr. Mitchell has, Roland Bola doesn't have it. His ability to do certain things, Roland Bola or anyone else doesn't have it. We have all our own strengths as well as our weaknesses. And what we have to always aim to do, especially when we are in the service of people, when we are there to serve people, is to build on each other's strength, use our collective strength to make and weave together to make that bond stronger, and identify our weaknesses individually and help work with one another to ensure that those weaknesses does not overcome or
Yeah.
override or play too much of an important part in terms of our delivery and our way forward. So
We have another caller on the line. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning, caller.
not seem to be happening this morning.
No? All right, let's see if we can get that call to come back again. Something that I want us to, well, I don't want to take away from what's being said, but let me just read this comment here. It says, I remember the day after the last election, I had to walk from the park, forgot the name of it, all the way to Willis. Well, it was worth the celebration.
I wonder what caused that person to relieve that moment.
I don't know. I don't know. But we'll see. I think the call is coming back. I could be wrong. All right. I don't know what's going on with the lines this morning. But guys, the number to call is 440-7377 if you're calling locally. If you are in the diaspora and you want to give us a call, the number to call is 347-329-3101. Let's hear from you. Let's hear how you're feeling. Have you listened and digested what the Prime Minister has said? What are your views? What would you have said differently? You know, because everyone is entitled to their opinion. What would you have said or done differently? You know, we want to hear from you. Mr. Bola, I looked at the news last night, and of course social media was crawling with comments and videos and so on about what was happening in the United States of America, and I got I got a little concerned. Not for America. I think America will be able to handle themselves eventually. I got concerned for Grenada because I see similar things happening here. Let me explain what I mean by that.
I hope you will.
We have an opposition who is hell-bent on inciting.
We have opposition forces because sometimes
opposition, yeah.
The point. We have an opposition.
Yeah, we have opposition forces, and
yes,
we made that correction yesterday.
Yes.
We have opposition forces who's bent on inciting rioting, who is bent on promoting protest and these things. Now, what happened in America yesterday didn't just happen because of yesterday. It happened because of years of influence and encouragement along those lines. It happened because of people in leadership positions inciting this kind of behavior, making people feel that it is okay.
Yes.
When there is an issue or a disagreement, to pick up your flags and your placards and so on and march. And while, mind you, some of our mentalities here are different from those of the Americans, it is not impossible for something of that magnitude to happen here in Grenada. It has happened before with the revolution. It is not impossible. So when you start conditioning the minds of people to feel that in order for things to go the way that you want it to go, there must be some sort of uprising. There must be some sort of riot, racketeering. Then we are headed down a very slippery slope in a similar direction.
Well said. I think the point made that it is not impossible. In fact, I think it would be very much to the liking of some opposition forces. And I say that not because I have any special information or inside information, but just the mannerism, the utterances they make, the threats they lay out, and the way they try to incite, disturbance and disrespect and so. In fact, in recent times, one heard on a radio program, I heard the present interim leader of the NDC saying that around the carnival time, when the young people, many of them, disregarded the new bit of law that was in place to say that carnival is being postponed and there should be no masquerading and so, has been correct with what they did. It frightens you and it gives one the impression that, look, if we have leaders of that nature that continues to instill in the minds, especially of our younger ones, that breaking the law is absolutely okay and there could be no repercussions for it, we may soon start seeing, and I mean, there have been isolated incidents where some people have demonstrated an unwillingness, I should say, to cooperate with the law, with the leadership of the country, and of course with the enforcement arm, which is generally the police. And when you start seeing the authorities being challenged in that way, and I am in no way saying that we are under martial law and people should not comment or state their displeasure with something when it happens. All I'm saying is we need to understand how to respect and when to respect authorities. You know, it's necessary because you're living in a world where rules and regulations have their place. They mean something. And they were done and put in place for a certain reason. There must be certain actions that must be taken as a result. And so I concur with you when you say that it is not impossible. I honestly do hope, though, that good sense will continue to prevail and that our people, especially the younger ones, will think, you know, before they really take some of those unwarranted actions. I call them unwarranted because we oftentimes say here, why can't we deal with our differences and our issues in a more civil way by having discussions that we don't have to be disrespectful and disruptive. We don't have to create chaos in order to let our voices be heard. There are sufficient medium within the country. There's enough. I think as a small island, Grenada probably has more radio stations than any other small island. And I have not done a research to prove.
I think Barbados has 3. And we are carrying on 9 radio stations?
We just this program. Yeah. 5 or 6 or whatever the case may be. And there's so much more that we have not touched. So the point I'm making is that there are sufficient medium for us to express ourselves than to take it to the other level.
We have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Hi, Clinton. Good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
How was it? Good. How was your New Year's?
It was quiet, just the way I liked it.
Me too. Anyway, let me just quickly see what government did to take back, if I may use that word, Grenlec, was the absolutely right thing to do. I don't care what people have to say. No, I think you know the voice.
We know the voice.
We know the voice.
But we'd rather you use the word repurchase, but not take back, because they did pay for it.
we West Indians, Mr. Bowler.
I know we are, but you know, we just want to be correct because some people sometimes takes every little thing we say
they're gonna have a problem
out of context.
Anything you see.
Yes.
Anyway, as an individual, I can say that over the years of my life, I have been a satisfied customer of Grenlec in CDC days, in government days, and in WRB days. As an employee, as a shareholder, and as a consumer of electricity. However, I don't see any reason for a private company to want to overthrow maybe that's a strong word to use. You might be able to help me on a word for that one. A sovereign government.
Monopolize.
Monopolize? No.
You don't want that one?
No. Anyway, I have to admit that as a young person in Grenada before WRB, it was a bit disheartening because every day there was load shedding and this, that, and the other.
Yes.
All right? And we must face the fact that when WRB came in, there were lots of improvement in the company. And I'm not going to go back on that just because some people may not be pleased with me. There have been much improvements. However, as far as
we lost you a little bit.
It seems like we're breaking up just a little bit.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, let me just quickly see. The government did the right thing. Because we needed to have the diversification. Is that a word?
Diversification,
of
or divestment.
People doing, just like in the telephone company. Right? Well, I think you get the point.
Yes.
Right, okay.
And there will be benefits as a result of that happening. Yes.
For employees, for shareholders, for the people of Grenada, for the government, provided, of course, government allows this to be run in the proper manner. Because I have to be honest with you, I get the impression that nothing government runs is being handled properly. I'm being very frank with you.
No, you are correct.
We saw it in the transport situation, even in the PRGD. And government seem to have a kind of not being able to do projects and to do it properly. Why, I don't know. But the government has done the right thing by repurchasing, as you see, the shares of Grenada. And to my mind, the sour part of the agreement is where the company could force government's hand to buy over the company, regardless of its situation, the position it is in, just because WRB wants to, or whoever wants to get rid of it, get it out of their hand. And so I applaud the government, and they were very patient. I have to say they were very patient.
Thank you.
And I hope I think you said the minister is coming in tomorrow, two of them?
The Minister Pierre would be on with us tomorrow, but it's more to talk about the reopening of school and education and so.
Well,
but on Tuesday next week, there'll be a parliamentary sitting in which a lot of the issues surrounding WRB and the repurchasing of the shares will be outlaid in the parliament, so that and we'll be bringing it live for from 10 o'clock.
But let me just ask you one question, because I made the statement and somebody counteracted me, and I don't think I'm wrong. During the repurchase of agreement, the negotiations and so by WRB, wasn't it the NDC who did the final sign up and the final purchase agreement and whatnot?
Of course, in 1994.
Okay.
It was the NDC.
So let me also ask you this. Did NNP start the negotiations?
Right. So when NNP came in 95, something was done. It was brought to a tribunal and they had some discussions and what have you. And
no. I'm not talking about
She means
after.
before
I'm
the
talking
signature.
about before. If it was NNP and WRB who started the negotiations.
No.
Well, that's what I'm telling them.
No.
But I tell myself, okay, I could be wrong too. Maybe I could even be biased.
Yes.
All right. Thanks for
all of it started in 94 and the sale.
And Mrs. Purcell was the minister of...
Yes, and of course the former Prime Minister Tillman Thomas was the lead negotiator on the sale to WRB.
Okay.
From the government side.
Going crazy?
No, you're not. Not as yet, and I hope you won't ever.
No. I too solid for that. All right.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. All right.
Yes. I want to read some of the comments. We have somebody on WhatsApp is saying, good morning to Hard Talk. Well said, Miss Duncan. That's why we must be careful who we put in government or in places of making decisions. Not because you study law or maths means that you are a leader. Leading is a calling. Trump is a real case of that, a failure of businessman put in a leadership position. We have to be wise. Who wants to be leaders and who are true leaders. We have a call coming in on the overseas line. Let's hear from our friends in the diaspora. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Duncan.
Good morning.
Did you see Senator Bola? I'm looking for him. I haven't seen him in a while.
I see him this for the new year. You know, he shave up his beard and things. So you're looking at like a different, but he does sit down next to me.
Stop telling lies, Mr.
Oh, he trying to look young.
Stop telling lies on me, Miss Duncan.
Trying to keep up.
I am right here.
He's trying to keep up with me.
What you talking about shave up beard? I am who I am. I can't look younger than I am. I mean, my wife is so happy that I'm a young man. What else do I care about how you feel about me? Happy New Year to you, sir.
Oh, boy. All right.
Happy New Year to you, sir.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to you, too.
Yes, great.
Yes. I want to make... First of all, I'm still in the place, so Ms. Duncan, don't worry. Yes, I want to make a contribution to what... a touching topic, and this last caller did mention it. But I want to say I am a bit disappointed in this present administration, and I'll tell you why. Now, we know there was a deal struck between the then NDC administration and the company, which is Grenada.
Well, WRB already, yeah?
Right, okay, WRB, yeah. Okay. Now, we have people from the National Democratic Congress who is coming forward and continuously lying for the people. Mm-hmm. All the government has to do is to just print out the agreement that was signed. Maybe if you could do it over a few times, you have newspapers, so that the people can read for themselves the contractual arrangement between, or the agreement that was done, and case closed. Mm-hmm. Don't come and say, because it does not matter what you say, these people are still going to lie. It's as if you're telling, I'm not calling them Satan, but as if you're telling Satan, don't lie, just be honest and speak the truth. It wouldn't work. These people are bent on just trying to deceive the Grenadian public. They're doing that. They would not stop doing that. Everything that they say, out of everything that they say, to my mind, 110% is not true. It's not true. That is to my mind. That's not to everybody's mind. That's what I believe. So I think that the government just stop making this run around. There are documents. You print the documents, and I'm not sure how big the document is, how many pages. If it's a couple pages, you can have the newspaper printed. Let the people read, and case closed. Don't go back and forth with these people, because it didn't make no sense. You know, it's like you're trying to fight with a cop.
Just one thing I want to tell you is that the document has been around from '94 to now. There are a lot of Grenadians that read it. It's available. It's online. It's everywhere. The point is,
then print it again.
The couple of those who are making the noise will always make noise, irrespective of what you do. Yeah. In fact, just to cutting on you there a little bit, there was a particular radio announcer who was on To The Point a couple of days ago, who went back to a document just before the NDC sold in 1994. There was an inquest or an inquiry, probably. The Warrior Inquiry. And he went back to that. And you know, interestingly, what I took out from what he said is that when these people speak, that's him, I'm paraphrasing now, and maybe not the exact words, they're not speaking to people like me. They're speaking only to the 30,000 NNP supporters who will just jump up and say, yeah, with everything they say, because I know better. And he went on with a long set of foolishness, in my opinion, again, like you, that made no sense, that made no difference to the deal now, that spoke nothing about improvement and growth and the fact that we need to move away from fossil fuel generation of energy into renewables and all the benefits that we can get as a country, not just financially, but environmentally and health-wise and everything else, which will be spoken about over time. So they are braying, and we allow them to. But the takeaway point here is, whatever you say, they are just this group of people. They're not much, but they're very loud. They will continue to make noises. So your suggestion is taken, but I just want you to know it ain't going to change the price and nothing for them.
If it is the same program that you're speaking about, if it's the same one I'm thinking about, I was listening to a program with this guy from GBN.
Yes.
And he just kind of scaled through what he was reading, but he could jump down to Mr. Gregory Boeing got, I think it was 16,000 or whatever.
As the manager, when there was,
was,
and that was the law, he was managing. This is what was prescribed for him to get. He didn't just take that. Every worker gets profit sharing.
And this is what is very hypocritical. You have a whole list of who was there, who got how much bonus. We'll call the other people on the list too.
Yeah.
But you jump everybody and you're gone down to Mr. Gregory Bowen, so you have a beef with him. And this is the kind of thing that I cannot take. This is hypocrisy. And talking about how Minister Bowen lied, there is no load sharing now, and I said that's stupidness. I mean, this thing is not making sense. And I can tell people who may not know. I remember there was a particular time in our history when you used to see fire on the telephone poles on the transformer. Fire. Right. That haven't happened since after WRB would have strike the deal and stuff. I don't know why the fires happened, but I haven't seen it for a long time. But I find, this is my personal thing, because I don't live here, but I have been observing certain things, and it seems to be, I'm not saying it is true, but it seems to be that after the law was passed, the liberalization law passed, and please people, I'm saying seems, it seems to be like there is a sabotage that is trying to take place. I'm not sure if it is true. I'm not sure. But I want us to be careful, and people should know. I mean, come on. What happened is for the benefit of us. Now, I now has the will, the ability to produce electricity, whether it be wind or solar or whatever, without having any hammer over my head as to, if you do that, we can prosecute you for that, because you have one company who was the sole agent to produce electricity. And then you have these bunch of people sitting there in the National Democratic Congress and telling us what happened was bad. And how they know Minister Bowen line. They know all how Minister Bowen line.
But they can't
But they will not come out with full truth. This is the kind of things I don't like. That is very hypocritical. And I think, again, if the government can consider, or if there is an honest newspaper, forget about the new today, an honest one, that can find the document and print it. If it's a couple of pages long, maybe you do it over a period of weeks or whatever.
Yes,
so that persons can read again.
Yes.
Persons can read again and get to know what is the truth. Because I don't like when people lie. I mean, if you say something and it's not true and you realize it's not true, you come back and you apologize. But these people, to me,
just outright
like they are baptized in a spring of lies. They can't stop lying. So you can't stop lying. And I know what they're saying is not true. I know what they're saying is falsehood. And it's time that the public, the Grenadian public, especially their base, call them out on this foolishness that they're doing there.
Well, as of next Tuesday, hopefully, we'll get some info, and there would be a lot more on the Grand Lake issue or the WRB repurchase shares by government and so, because the parliament will be meeting the lower house next Tuesday, and a lot of deliberations will be on that, a lot of answers will be given, a lot of clarity would come out. So after that, I tend to believe there'd be a lot more balanced discussion. As it is now, it's just one side trying to pollute the whole place with their propaganda and pushing their own vibes. And of course, truth is what will set us free at the end of the day. And benefits is what will make people understand whether or not the whole deal, in truth and in fact, was good or bad. Because you will
if you get
then
a raw
have
deal or not,
yes. So time and benefits will determine that.
And before I go, I want to quickly say I want to quickly support Ms. Duncan and what she has said. This insurrection that happened yesterday, it was not, this thing didn't start yesterday.
True.
For years, the president was speaking about it. And then just before this thing happened, he also encouraged his base. We walking down there. I mean, he didn't go, but he encouraged them. And when you begin to plant seeds, it doesn't matter what seeds, whether good seeds or bad seeds in people's mind, over a period of time, they would be drawn one way or the other.
Absolutely.
And he has been planting negative seeds over the 4-year period. He lost the election fair and square, but he does not want to accept defeat. And this is what is happening. But the most important thing to me is that finally Kamala Harris will be the tiebreaker in the Senate. The two senators from Georgia, the two candidates won their seat.
Yes.
And that is the most important thing to me. Things would go differently now with appointing, whether it be judges or whatever appointments, things would be much better than. But, and you know, I noticed, I'm going to run because I know other people have to call. What I noticed yesterday is that, and I want Grenadians to take note, you had people from the Congress, senators and congressmen, never thought that these people would have done this thing go so far.
Yeah.
But after they realized yesterday, that their life was at risk, some of them, as most of them from the Senate and some from the Congress, had changed course to raise objection over the thing. They realized, like their eyes flash before their eyes, but we don't have to wait too late.
Yeah.
If somebody is telling you who they are in the daytime, don't take flashlight to find out who they is in the night.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Oh, Footprints always said so, man.
That's correct. So have a good day.
You too.
And we'll talk again.
Well, I hear you still in the land, but I haven't seen you. So I don't know why you're keeping away from me. I don't have COVID, and I wear my mask. I just wanted you to know. Have a blessed day.
You see, the part of the protocols is to keep 6 foot distance.
Yeah, but to me, you're keeping 60,000 feet.
I'm always in poetry. I just don't come down by you.
I ain't seen that. You keeping not 6 feet, but 60,000. And I have a gate. I have a gate. So even if you don't want to get too close, you could stay on one side of the gate and I stay on the other side and we just say hello. Good luck to one another, and I know at least my eyes will be.
No, I'm opening the gate and come in.
But I thought you want to keep you 6 feet.
Well, we could keep 6 feet.
Okay.
We could keep 6 feet, but
fine.
We could keep 6 centimeters. Although that would be too close.
I feel a little too close for comfort.
Yes. All right. So have a good day.
You as well. And thank you for your contribution as per usual. We are happy.
Yes. All right.
All right. Thank you.
Good.
Mr. Bola, I want to quickly make a comment along those same lines as well. People might look at, because over the past few months, what we've noticed is an increase in the amount of young people who think it's okay to go on social media disrespecting people in authority and disrespecting people in leadership positions. They're not subtle about it anymore. They're just outright disrespectful. And you see it a lot there are older people who do it as well. But you see it a lot more in the younger generation. And I want people to understand, and I'll give an example. When you have a child and your child is disrespectful to you as a parent, and you leave that disrespect to fester, there comes a time in your life and in that child's life where you cannot correct, where you cannot manage, where you cannot impart knowledge, where you cannot approach that child. It is the exact same situation that we are dealing with now. When you sit down and you laugh ki ka 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 at at young people disrespecting, and it's been happening. You see it all over social media. Before somebody says something disrespectful, they turn it into memes and they send it out there, and people laughing ki ka ka. You see videos of disrespect happening. People send it out and everybody get a good gaff off of it, and it's okay. They treat it as though it's a custom and a culture. Let me tell you what's going to happen. If a child does not, or a person does not have respect for somebody in leadership position, they ain't have no respect for you either. So what we are doing is we are now fostering a culture where young people think it's okay to just say what they want in the way that they want to say it and call it freedom of speech. And that is a very dangerous thing that we are doing and we are fostering. And I need us to understand as a people, it have nothing to do with Dr. Mitchell or NNP or NDC or any particular individual. It is a general thing because it may start with that. But guess what? Once they are comfortable in doing it, they realize that nobody in making a big deal out of it, then they would move on to other areas. And that is why you find in the workplace, you have bosses complaining about you hiring young people and cannot manage with them because they are outright disrespectful. They have no respect for authority. I'm not saying allow people to trample over you, but there must be an understanding that you have to have some respect. And if we continue as a nation to allow these things to happen and to think that it is okay, well, is Dr. Mitchell, we are accustomed saying that. People are accustomed, NDC always bashing him. So it's okay. It is not okay. I've heard Minister Steele in the press conference on Tuesday, and he said that he's read the comments and he's seen the posts. And I want you to understand, while he might be Minister for Health, while Dr. Sean Childs might be acting CMO, those are just titles. They are human beings first. And these things can affect you. It can affect your will to want to carry on. The work that they're doing, yes, it's their job. But mind you, they are putting in a lot of sacrifice for us as a nation. And if that does not guarantee your respect, then we are doomed.
Of course.
And it's a very frightening thing because I know growing up, you had to have respect for everybody around you. If your mother don't talking to somebody, you're not dare say you're not talking to them too. No, well, it's true. And I mean, you grow up with these kind of principles. Even my children, there are people in society who I don't speak to, right? It's no secret that I don't speak to them. But mind you, my children passing in the road, they have to say good morning or good afternoon. That is the way that they are grown. Because if they could disrespect somebody outside, they could come home and try it with me too. And that will never happen.
Where did we go wrong? When did it all start?
When we started injecting politics into too many things. Where we don't know where to draw the line. That is where we started to go wrong. Where we allowed this power struggle, this political struggle, this color struggle to consume us so much that we don't know how to live apart from it. That is where we started to go wrong.
And then, as a result, our young people in particular feel emboldened because they take a strain. They look at what senior or their seniors are doing, what they're saying, how they are reacting to the authority, and they feel it is fine, it is okay. But we are in for a very rude awakening.
We are.
If we do not take the necessary steps now. And I'm not talking now about getting rowdy and rough with young people. I'm not talking about the police trying to rough them up. I'm just talking about we taking cognizance of what is happening from what you have said and being prepared to take corrective actions.
We have a caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning once again. Sorry for coming back. But I want to take up on this because you make that observation. The color identity and getting too deep in the political by the supporters that is creating there.
Yeah, we're here.
That's creating the problem. That is identified right now in the United States. What you call the color identity.
Yeah.
You know, that is creating a problem. You say, well, the support identity, you support this party. And everybody's exposed whose party, who supporting what party. And that's where the conflict is. And on this radio station, with Mr. Bowler, I did call for the dismantling, as you said, dismantling of the color structure and even the party support structure. Bringing the people together and everybody vying for the quantity is bringing the war. So that is not only in Grenada or in America, throughout the world, it is causing the same problem where members are fighting with members over political matters, and you're not politicians.
Yep.
We don't understand the politics. Politics, as some people say, is a game, but it's a science. There's a science in politics that nobody wants to say. There's a science in politics. Politics, the definition is a method of sharing the country's wealth among its people, but it did not say equally. And that is where the problem is. So I support my base, and you support your base, and it's war. We have to bridge that gap. Cut out the color, cut out the party support structure. I don't want to know how much person going to vote for me. I could go in the junction, there were 3 persons, but I know I have 1,000 persons supporting me. I don't want to know who support me by name or what identity. I don't want the identity that is creating the problem. And we have to cut that out, and that will never have peace.
Yeah.
That's what so your observation is very, very, very relevant.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You too.
You as well, brother. We appreciate again.
Mr. Bola, you think it's easy to live in this world where we have politics dividing us, we have religion dividing us, we have our own opinions dividing us. Everything just seems to be, everybody just believes, well, not everybody except me. I don't believe that. And I doubt you believe it too. That everything must be divided. Why can we not come together and see the common good? And that's why I always speak about looking for the positivity in a situation. Because if we can all rally around the positivity of a situation, then guess what? The chances of us all coming up with a resolution that is beneficial for us all is greater than if I looking at it from the left and you looking at it from the right and 2 of us clash in the middle. We just can't agree. And nobody says that we always have to agree on everything. But we must understand and respect the fact that whatever is done must be done with the interest of everyone at heart. Not just some or the other, but everyone. Whatever the resolutions to our problems, some of us are really good at pointing out problems. We're excellent at pointing out what a problem is. But ask them, so you have identified this problem. Have you taken time, instead of on every single press conference you're bringing up the same problem, every single media engagement you're bringing up the same problem, you're on social media you're bringing up the same problem, for years one problem you're bringing up, and you have not yet as an individual sat down and decided, I am going to try to find a resolution to this problem. You can't provide a solution. All you can provide is the problem. And that is one of the biggest problems that we have in society. Everyone is hell-bent on looking at the negativity of a situation and looking at the problem of the situation and not interested in providing solutions.
Most people, not
Most
everyone.
people.
You don't know my belief system, but you're correct in that I'm not that very negative. And I want to, concur with you that we need to look at that situation. We need to pay particular attention because it's deteriorating and deteriorating rapidly at a very quick pace. The challenges that are being meted out to authorities, to the people that has a responsibility to ensure law and order, peace and tranquility. They are being challenged on a daily basis, and I shout out all of the law enforcement officers of our country. You have been doing tremendously good job. Yes, there have been infractions here and there. You know, sometimes you have gone overboard a little, and not that we want to pass it off, but we want to encourage you. You sometimes get under a lot of pressure, and the human being is like that. We can take so much, and based on your level of training, that's what you can accommodate, and then sometimes you break. But I just want to say it's a new year, as we've started the week on Monday saying, and we have a chance to look back, to reflect on what has happened last year, the things we did very well, those we didn't do too well, and those that we didn't do well at all, and make the necessary and take the necessary corrective measures. Having said that, we have wind down with time. We have come, friends. We can't take any more calls. We are just going to do the wrap up now. We have come to the time where we have to get off air so we can accommodate the national report. But just as we do that, I want to send out my sympathies and on behalf of the HARDTALK family to two particular individuals, and I really don't want to be hanged by the neck for doing what I'm doing now, because we are not into the obituaries and we can't talk about every person who have lost their life. But the Pierre family in Paraclet, Mr. Speaker, the Speaker of the House, he and his siblings have lost their mother, I think sometimes yesterday or so. And we just want to extend, our heartfelt sympathy. It's the mother-in-law of our Minister of Education, who have lost her life. And, by virtue of the status of one of her son as the Speaker of the House, the Speaker in one of the highest institutions in the land, we express our heartfelt sympathy to them. And then one that is a little closer to me, closer to home. And of course, the Pierre's, Mrs. Pierre, lives in the St. Andrews northeast side of Paraclet. Paraclet is divided into. Mr. Speaker lives on the northwest side of Paraclet, but she lives northeast. And we have just learned earlier on this morning, somewhere about 1 o'clock hour last night, or this morning, just around 1 a.m. this morning, a young police officer 487, Neil Julian, who actually is from and has been residing in Simon, St. Andrews, Northeast, a very close place to my heart. It's an area where I've worked a lot with the people during my time as a representative, and still does, who unfortunately passed. And I have seen that the commissioner and the rest of the force have sent out their sympathies and condolences to the family. And the mother, who I know very well, a pretty young lady still, Michelle Julian, and the Julian family, it's a pretty large family that spread out between Simon, Paradise, Cocoa, Chocolate City, as it's been nicknamed, and of course as far up as Dunfermline, they have a pretty widespread, many of them there. So again, on behalf of myself, my family, and the entire NNP family, we just want to empathize with that family and say condolences go out to Michelle Julian and the rest of her immediate family for the loss of her son, Neil Julian, police officer 487. Friends, it was a pleasure being with you today again, having guided you for a sort of reduced program, because we had the Prime Minister on for part of that program, but we do really appreciate all of the calls, all of the concerns, and those who have made contribution by whatever way, sending in a comment. We don't and cannot, in fact, read all of the comments that come, but you should keep them coming, even though you have not heard yours being read. One day your own might just be read, but we, as we go along and time will permit, we read a couple of them. We hope to be with you tomorrow, God's willing. We should have the Minister with responsibility for education, religious affairs, and of course, GIS, what you call that, information. With us to speak a lot more and probably bring into focus and give some further explanation about the restart of school for our children for next week, Monday, I believe.
Yeah.
Please join us if you can, but try and enjoy the rest of today. And we do hope that you would be having a very rejuvenating night's sleep and be able to join us tomorrow again. Thank you.
All right. Well, we have come to the end of our program for today. As we say here every day, in whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe and be secure. We always want to be talking with you, but we don't ever want to be talking about you. Please do enjoy the remainder of your day and stay tuned for the National Report.
Ministry of Education announces phased approach for all students from Monday, January 11th. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report. Welcome back. With the details to the news for Wednesday, January 6th, 2021, I am Sherry Ann Noel. The Ministry of Education says a phased approach will be adopted for the return of students to the classroom from Monday, January 11th. On Wednesday, the ministry outlined its plans for the safe return of students to primary and secondary institutions, which includes adherence to a 6-foot social distancing protocol, wearing of masks, and sanitization of classrooms and visitors where necessary. Chief Education Officer Mrs. Angela Finlay told the GIS that commencing Monday, January 11th, priority will be given to all students preparing for CXC and CPEA examinations in May and June. However, schools with a small population can submit a proposal to the ministry for approval to implement a full return of all students.
We were advised to adopt a phased approach to the return of students. Knowing the extent to which preparation for exams plays out with as being important, it was felt that for all levels, getting back the students that are in that most critical age group, meaning the exit groups, and that's from preschool all the way up to secondary school, the decision was taken to have the exit grade for each level return to school as of Monday the 11th. However, we also are aware that there are other schools with very small numbers, the entire population. In some cases, the population of some of the smaller schools would be eclipsed by a single grade level within another school. So when we are saying entire grades for some of the bigger schools, we realize that some of the smaller schools, the total population would be of the same amount.
She explained that during the week of January 18th, each school will implement its school-specific plan, which will cater to a blended learning approach.
In that mix, no student should be home without face-to-face or on-site engagement. So if it is at least 1 day per week, we expect that the school-specific plan would make that possible for every child to be in school for at least 1 day per week. Ideally, we would like them to be there for at least 3 days per week, because we are thinking about success, which in our part of the world goes with a 50% pass rate. And it's sort of foolhardy to think that we can have a child go to school for 20% of it a week and and that it would be possible for them to have a 50% curriculum coverage. We are also asking teachers in this week to try and see whatever ways they can strategize. However, where more than 20% is not possible, to ensure remote contact, paper-based contact with students to allow them to be at least up to the 50% mark with content coverage.
The Ministry of Education advises that the outline for the return of students to the classroom is subject to change based on new developments relating to COVID-19. Moving along, the Government Information Service, GIS, will broadcast a live interview with Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell on Thursday, January 7, 2021 at 9 a.m. During the interview, the Honourable Prime Minister will reflect on 2020, look ahead to 2021 and respond to various questions. The interview will be broadcast on Channel 22 as well as the GIS Facebook page and YouTube channel. It will also be brought live by several other stations and social media platforms. Forecasters at the Met Office at the Morris Bishop International Airport say the impact of a low-level trough that is moving westward towards the southern Windward and Lesser Antilles could be experienced during the night on Wednesday. The prevailing condition is expected to induce the potential impact of street flooding or flash flooding in low-lying areas, and there's 60% chance of small-scale landslide in vulnerable areas.
The trough that we've expected to pass through has weakened significantly based on the current model runs that we've analyzed. However, we do expect that during the early afternoon we can see the increasing cloudiness still taking place with the showers and a possibility of thunderstorm, but is not as significant as we first expected, a significant improvement. However, during the evening time, we've seen that the conditions should improve, and later on tonight into early morning is when we expect another deterioration in the weather. We expect then time that we can see an increase in cloudiness, and the possibility of thunderstorm increases overnight.
NADMA and the Met Office are encouraging the public to be vigilant. Motorists are urged to be extra cautious when driving on wet roads, and pedestrians are encouraged to exercise due care and attention. NADMA, through the Meteorological Office, will continue to monitor the system and provide timely updates. This is the National Report. The news will continue after the break.
Are you gonna wear your mask today? You see everywhere you go. There are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives will be taken if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from away. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
Welcome back. The Ministry of Education will contract additional cleaners and monitors for the reopening of schools on Monday, January 11th. That's according to Chief Education Officer Mrs. Angela Finlay. She says it is critical that the compound is kept clean to protect the staff and students of the various institutions. Following the forced closure of schools in March, the Ministry of Education contracted several cleaners and monitors in September 2020, in addition to supplying cleaning agents and solutions.
Additional cleaners as well as monitors are being contracted once more to serve once students are back on the plant. So from next week, we expect additional cleaners and monitors to be on site to give that extra boost to sanitizing and monitoring movements and so forth.
Mrs. Finlay is confident that once there is compliance, the protocols implemented in the last school year will help to keep students safe.
What we had in place was a protocol which spoke to 6 feet distancing in the classroom and 12 feet when students are operating without mask. And when operating without mask is a necessity when it comes to meal times. So outside of meal times, you do expect all students to be masked, all teachers to be masked, except where the medical experts would say that this child needs a break or this teacher needs a break or they need to stand 12 feet away. But generally, we expect there to be compliance with the wearing of masks.
And finally in the news, the Royal Grenada Police Force continues in the spirit of giving by making donations that will help to bring a smile to the face of many. The RGPF has been distributing basic necessities to children and adults in various communities. Officer Cordina Douglas McLean, who is attached to the Community Relations Department, spoke to the initiative.
Today we have received a number of items. We received items such as children diapers, pampers, adult pampers, and some gently used toys. They were received from Mr. Ken Simon, a very generous gentleman who usually partners with the RGPF. He made this contribution to us, and in turn we're going to donate it to members of the community. Now, the pampers would be donated to needy families within our communities, the children pampers, and also the adult pampers. For the adult pampers, we're going to target some of the persons that the roving caregivers under the desk of the elderly, the people that they take care of. We're going to target these people in various communities and distribute the adult pampers to them. This is just one of the many initiatives that the RGPF has conducted throughout the Yuletide season. And we are very, very grateful to all who would have contributed towards the organization to ensuring that we were able to give back to our community in the various means and ways that we did.
And with that story, we come to the end of the National Report for Wednesday, January 6th, 2021. Now for a recap of the top story. Ministry of Education announces phased approach for all students from Monday, January 11th. On behalf of the entire news and production team, I'm Sherry Ann Noel, thanking you for viewing.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-860.
COVID-19 spreads from person to person through the droplets that are produced when someone coughs or sneezes, which makes it easy to spread between people in close contact. Now let's get prepared to stay healthy.
To reduce your chance of catching or spreading COVID-19, practice these simple everyday preventative measures. Droplets can also land on surfaces, so ensure that you wash your hands frequently for a minimum of 20 seconds or sing the happy birthday song twice. Avoid touching your face, especially your eyes, nose, and mouth. If soap and water are not readily available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with an alcohol content between 60 and 90%. 70% is ideal.
When you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth with a flexed elbow or a tissue. Dispose of the tissue immediately and then wash your hands. If you notice someone has a fever and cough or other symptoms of respiratory illness, avoid close contact when possible. Let's all do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. Our health is our collective responsibility.